Hello everyone, my name is Adelanda and this is Solarpunking. And this is our first episode. I am pretty excited to get started with this podcast because it's been on my mind for a while. And I just want a space where we can talk about solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build the world that we want to live in. So today I want to answer the obvious questions, or at least they're pretty significant questions to me. Why another podcast and what is solarpunking? And the answer to the first is actually kind of funny. I feel like I have something of value to contribute to the podcast space. And I couldn't find a podcast in the sea of podcasts like the one I wanted to build. So I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I've always thought that the talk radio format is an incredibly powerful communication tool, and I'm a subscriber to various NPR channels. I love Native Land Pod. Huge fan of Grits and Eggs, Star Talk Radio, The Majority Report, An Habituation Room, The Laverne Cox Show. I mean, there's so many. I follow so many podcasts. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. I think at last count, I had about 70 that I'm following. So I'm a longtime listener and first-time writer. Which brings us to the second question. What is solarpunking? I've sort of defined it for myself as the act of promoting and practicing sustainability, community, and compassion. But other people might have differing perspectives of what it means to them. My background is in sustainability. I went to the University of Houston Clear Lake, where I earned a bachelor's degree in environmental science with an ecology focus. I did some habitat restoration and field ecology work while I was in college for Johnson Space Center, and I was a trail guide at Armin Bayou Nature Center in Houston, Texas for a few years before COVID. And it's so weird how COVID is like a bookend of the before times. Anyway, when I graduated, I worked for the Department of the Interior for a few years, first as a field ecologist, then a park ranger for the National Park Service. My brain is just wired for sustainability work, and that's how I found myself where I am now, studying community sustainability and environmental justice in law school. And I want to apologize. As a side note, I know I need a pop filter, and I will get on that as soon as possible. So one of my goals for this podcast is to promote solarpunk ideology. I would like to share some of the innovative movements that are giving me hope in what can sometimes feel like an overwhelmingly hopeless place. I'd like to talk about some of the policies that will both push us closer to a more sustainable world and some that might be taking us a few steps back. I want to highlight some of the environmental justice movements that are already taking place. And for me, knowing that there is something that I can do to help push these movements forward helps me focus on the forest through the trees. So I hope that will be helpful for you too. Let's imagine a radical, joyful future rooted in sustainability, equity, and community resilience. So what does that look like? Well, sustainability means to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I got that definition from the UN, and as a side note, I should probably keep a list of sources for the content that I'm providing for folks that want to dig deeper after the episode, so I'll make note of that. But that definition fits my work perfectly. I'd love to talk about Edna Lewis at some point. Let me make a note of that as well. And the Soul Fire Farm, and the Land Back movement. All of those are really good examples of what solarpunk, sustainability, how those two cohesive movements work together. And I actually struggled to figure out what I wanted to focus on in this first episode, but my bestie said it's like a pilot, so I could lay out a bunch of different things, which I agree. So I apologize if it's a little all over the place, but sorry, not sorry, I guess. But first, I want to talk about a question that was presented on one of my favorite podcasts, Native Land Pod. If you don't currently listen to their show, I highly recommend it. They have frequent discussions about what the future holds for Black people in America and how we can build a rainbow coalition of folks to help us get there. The question was presented on May 29th in the episode titled Redefining Allyship, Power, and What Democracy Really Means. And it's what inspired me to create this podcast.
But I want to invite our listeners to offer up what their radical views of, and only radical by virtue of the fact that either hasn't been thought of, or maybe it was thought of and once practiced and then abandoned, or you know what, you just sitting on another cloud like Tiffany and I be doing sometimes when we take walks, philosophizing.
Yes, yeah.
Making it worse here. But that's my invitation. I want to be clear about it. I want to invite our listeners to offer up, if you think the system we have right now is broken, tell me, tell us, how would you redesign this thing? Maybe you scrap the whole thing and maybe you just offer up your notion of what does a beloved community for you look like? Maybe it is top down with a singular leader. Maybe it is democratized where we come to consensus as a group. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I love that. I'm looking forward to reading those comments.
That was Andrew Gillum, the former mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, and current co-host of Native Land Pod. And his question is so important. I actually think about this a lot when I am in bed, reading about all the wild things that are happening in our country and around the world, and thinking, it doesn't have to be this way. We deserve better, like a mantra, So I actually asked my best friend of, I don't even know how long now. We've been besties since we were both 13 or 14. Not gonna age myself right now. But I asked her what she thought about it, and this is what she said.
A joyful and sustainable future to me looks like community. It looks like having public transit that's so easy to use and so prevalent that it's turnkey to be able to explore your own city, that you can get access to your friends and your family, that also they don't have the worry hanging over them and they have time and space and the mental capacity to have more joy in their lives because they're not worrying about things either monetarily or disaster-wise. It's the other shoe to drop, if you will. There's so many other things that go into this, but this is one of the facets, I think, that evokes for me.
I love her so much. That's my best friend, Katie. So shout out to her. And she also mentioned something that her husband Emmett said, which I thought was pretty important as well. Like having people that you're willing to be in community with, having people that share your ideals so that you're in a beneficial relationship with your community. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to want people who share your morals, your values, wanting those folks to be in community with you and not feeling like you have to force it with people who don't share those values, I think that's pretty important as well. So I think we can agree here that step one is finding those people that you can be in community with. And they are definitely those people for me. To me, solarpunk is that radical future. A future where no one worries about where they're going to lay their head at night or how they're going to eat. And one where people are encouraged to follow their passions while honoring being in service to their community. One where third spaces are everywhere, where kids are protected and can explore the world around them freely. One that re-envisions education, one where people look out for each other. One where creativity is valued just as much as ingenuity. Where profitability is defined by how much value you add to the community instead of just how much you add to your pockets. Where the idea of pride in one's community comes from a deep, meaningful culture instead of empty, enforced patriotism. I dream of this reality a lot, and the thing that I think presses on me the most is that it's not even hard to get there, right? It's volunteering in your community to meet a need that's underserved. It's mutual aid. It's having a mindset of advancing the community. It's about conserving resources for future generations. It's about constantly improving our social, economic, and environmental conditions so that the quality of life improves for everyone, not just some, but everyone. It's protesting unjust power structures. It's about restructuring our relationship with nature so that it's symbiotic instead of parasitic, right? And there are a lot of folks around the world who are doing these things. I think that American culture, specifically, is what I'm talking about here, because there are a lot of cultures around the world. There are a lot of folks around the world who are already practicing these things and seeing success. I think those of us who grow up in a society that values profits over people, in a hyper-capitalism, I think we just have to believe it's possible first. And we have to believe that we deserve better. Greta Thunberg is in the news again because she's one of 12 activists on the Madeleine ship carrying resources and aid to Gaza. They left from Sicily on June 1st, and I record this on Saturday, and I posted on Sunday, so they should be arriving sometime this weekend. It's being reported that the Israeli military plans to block the ship from reaching the coast and that the activists on board might be arrested. But they're still trying, and that's a profile in courage. That's someone believing that they have something of value to add to this world and using their privileges and resources to do what they can. And I'm talking about it now because I think we can all find hope in that. I think if we look around at all the people who are actively doing what they can to make things better, no matter the size of their contribution, we can find a way to join them. Here's a clip or some comments that she made, and I'll make sure I source them in the video description so you can find this video yourself.
And it's so weird to me that people are separating caring about the environment and the climate to caring about humans. Like, I care about the environment and the climate because I care about human and planetary well-being. Those are the same thing in my view. We are standing up for justice and for sustainability, for liberation for everyone. There can be no climate justice without social justice. We cannot pretend to care about the future of humankind and how our children will be affected in the future. Our, like, for example, in the case of Sweden, like, we cannot pretend to care about how our white privileged children will be impacted of climate change in the future when we are ignoring the suffering of marginalized people today. That is just an extremely racist way of seeing the world.
I have nothing to add. 10 out of 10. No notes. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of Solarpunking. You can catch new episodes every Sunday this summer, where I will talk about solarpunk ideology, things we can do in our communities to make them better, and ways to build the world that we want to live in. Until next week, stay hydrated and motivated. Peace.